Ken Rosenthal did he does a couple different podcasts. So in one of the podcasts he was talking about, which I listened to actually, he was talking about the Cardinals because he, spent time on the ground in St. Louis doing the Dodgers game Saturday. And he was talking about, listen, the Cardinals still have to do things about their outfield. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to trade an outfielder, Okay? I would agree. I would also wonder who has trade value. But I agree in general, in principle. He said, they're going to have to clearly make a move and have to trade an outfielder. So the next thing you know, because a couple of my friends told me about this because they were just laughing so hard. You've got Cardinals fans and Cleveland Guardians fans on Twitter talking about how Ken Rosenthal said the Cardinals are trying to trade Jordan Walker. He said nothing of the sort. So you've got dimwit fans in both of these markets, and the two teams are going to play this play over the weekend. You've got them shrieking like Chicken Little. The Looney Tunes element of Twitter, Cardinals fans are talking about, oh, this is terrible. You can't trade him. I can't believe this. The other ones are putting together trade back, packages, which would basically have the Guardians sending like every good player they have to St. Louis. And the thing of it is, I mean, both fan bases that are participating in this, and I know most Cardinals fans aren't, are just living in kind of an alternate universe. And they're making trades on Twitter. And people are trying to tell them, listen, here's where Ken Rosenthal talks about this. Just fast forward on the podcast. You can hear what he said. At no point does he remotely suggest they're putting Jordan Walker on the trade block. But yet that's all you hear. That it was interpreted as, oh, man, Cardinals trading Jordan Walker. I wonder who's going to get him. What? Listen, I'm an old dude now, but I really worry about the future of this great nation of ours. I really do. I mean, it's just the dumb factor is just off the charts. But maybe I'm also being dumb because there was no Twitter when I was growing up. There was no Twitter when Jim Heuer was growing up, or many of you listening growing up. Can you imagine some of the dumb things we all probably would have been saying had Twitter existed in the 70s, the 80s, 90s, whatever?
Oh, boy.
It'd be all kinds of dumb. And I'd probably be guilty of that myself.
Oh, man. I can't imagine what storylines would have been thrown around from just things going on in the late 70s, early 80s in the game of baseball, especially with the stuff that was going on that we later found out about, like with the issues with drugs at the time. Can you imagine how that would have blown up? Because the trial, what was that, in Pittsburgh, involving Pittsburgh? Pirate players were involved. I know Keith Hernandez had to. I mean, I can't imagine what Twitter would have done with stuff like that. Gee whiz.
Here's one tweet. When guys like Jordan Walker get traded for non-stars, that would raise serious questions. Yes, it would. Yes, it would, except he's not going to get traded.
We already assume it's non-stars.
Yeah. Indians fans, I'm actually reading tweets now where they're saying, we don't want him. You'd have to do better than that.
Oh. There you go.
One guy is a Cleveland fan. Cardinals fans are way overvaluing Jordan Walker. This trade would be an absolute fleece job of Cleveland.
Wow.
We got to start playing like the Looney Tunes theme song every now and then. So, here's one. Yeah, this would work. Andy Pandy. Cardinals, they should trade Tommy Edman and Jordan Walker for an elite number one spot starter. Not a number one starter, a spot starter.
Spot starter.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was a comic relief segment. I think this stuff's hysterical. Although it does bother me how dumb people are.
Well, we're trading Paul DeYoung by the end of the weekend, aren't we?
Yeah, maybe so, right? Maybe so. It's really funny, though. I'm kind of getting a kick out of it. I want to talk about something else.
Okay.
And I'll make it quick because there's a couple other things we need to talk about. And again, ask for your indulgence because it's going to take just a second to get this. Many screens, many topics, many things to sort through. I mentioned this earlier. Okay, Wilson Contreras was the catcher, then he wasn't the catcher, and then 9 days later he is the catcher, except the fact that Kisner's still starting a lot of games. So I'm not quite as confused at the original move to pull him from the catching gear, but I'm a little confused why they feel he needs so many days off and not behind the plate. And if you look at recent starts, Wilson Contreras has caught a lot of their really good starts, especially on the homestand. And I'm not blaming Andrew Kisner because the whole point is it's the president of baseball operations responsibility because he failed to put together a good starting rotation. And number two on the list is again they're not babies even though they act like it. It's on the responsibility of the pitchers to be more consistent and pitch better instead of whining for Yachty. So I wouldn't blame either catcher for any mishaps involving Cardinals starting pitching. But what I don't understand is why are the Cardinals kind of shading this again? I'm not going to say they're actually splitting starts between the two, but it's starting to go that way. Mm-hmm. But here's one thing, and I know my friend Joe Sheehan would hear this and just say he'd be kind of nice on the air, but off the air he'd say, "Come on, Bernie, you're better than this." You don't base a guy's offensive performance on where he plays. Okay, all right. If people say that. I do understand that. I don't necessarily disagree with that. However, I'll throw this out this year, and I have it. All right. This season, when Contreras is a catcher, right?
Okay.
He's got 4 home runs, 20 RBIs, 270 average, 328 on base, which is a little low for me. 451 slug, that's fine, and it was climbing. 778. But every time he's catching a lot and is really starting to get on a roll offensively, then they say, "Well, we got to get Kisner at bats." Why? Why?
You're right.
You have a lot of people. You got a lot of people who can DH. You're carrying 3 catchers, in part because you want to be able to pinch hit for Kisner in a game. Well, here's an idea: if he's not starting, you won't have to worry about that, right?
I'm there with you. We finally saw Barrera last night, and when he did get in the game, the wild pitch, fastball, whatever that he didn't handle led to a guy getting a third, and the sac fly lost him the game.
So 122, I'll just whittle it down to batting average and OPS. And 122 plate appearances as a catcher when he's catching, 270 batting average and a 778 OPS. I'd like to see the OPS over 800. But again, they're moving him around so much. I don't think it helps him. He's had 71 plate appearances as a DH. Batting average 186. OPS 629. I think a lot of Contreras' identity and something that really feeds his competitiveness is he takes pride in being a catcher. Mm-hmm. And while this isn't on the grand scale of the way they mistreated and humiliated a guy without reason, the fact that they're sort of moving, they're inching towards this thing again where, we got to get Kisner. Why do you have to do that? And besides, the whole damn point of signing him for $87.5 million 5 years to help out Contreras is because you would have, among catchers, one of the top performers offensively. So once again, and he's not doing well at DH. I don't know why. It's a small sample, but again, I know he has immense pride in his identity as a catcher. So you take that away from him. Does he have immense pride being a DH? Probably not as much. And by the way, it's his responsibility to hit. But why do they continue to mess with this? Oh, we signed what we feel is the best hitting catcher in baseball. And, and he assured us he wants to catch, and we want him to catch too. We had to get assurances that he didn't want to be a DH because we want him behind the plate. That didn't age well, did it?
No.
But what?
It hasn't aged well the second attempt to make him the catcher either. He's
hitting what is it? I mean, he's hitting like 140 points or 104 points, whatever the hell it is, better when he plays catcher. And his slugging percentage, 451 as a catcher, 305 as a DH. There's a big difference in the OPS. So why does Kisner keep creeping into the picture? Isn't the reason you signed Contreras because you got no offense last year from Yachty and Kisner, and actually it was like that 2 years in a row? Doesn't this defeat the purpose?
Yes.
I don't know what's in the water over there because, again, I would get pushed back on it, but I would always stress how smart they are. But over the last couple of years, it's like, what is wrong with everybody? Why are they doing these things? It's just absolutely idiotic. Sign a catcher because he's going to boost your offense as a catcher at the position. And he has been. It's much better than it was last year, except you keep messing with him by putting him at DH where he's not doing a damn thing, basically. 1 home run, 5 RBIs. I don't know, man. I know our listeners, if they hear this stuff, I'm thinking a lot of them are seeing it just the way I do. And I'm going to repeat it again. I've said it a lot the last couple of years about the Cardinals. Where did all the smart people go? Where'd they go? Where'd they go? I'd like to know that they're really smart again. I don't see it. The way they go in the season with the starting rotation like this 2-3 years in a row, and they're arrogant about it. And you sign Wilson Contreras, Bill DeWitt's not money. He's not a big free agent guy. $87.5 million, 5 years. And you're not only having him serve as a full-time catcher, you keep messing with him. You keep putting him at DH, which is hurting your team because he's not hitting well at all at DH. But he is hitting well at catcher, but you won't play him at catcher because you got to get at bats. You got to work Andrew Kisner in there, a guy who can't hit except for every now and then he gets on a little roll. Does that sound like a smart baseball organization?
No. Texter says, just ask the Dodgers if Contreras is good behind the plate stealing pitches.
Well, how about that? Thank you. I really appreciate that because I didn't even think to talk about that. He's been rankling teams all year behind the plate because he's kind of a loon behind there in a good way. He's crazy volatile, and I think he does rattle some opponents because like, man, this guy's nuts. And that's what you want. Well, that's what everyone thought about him in Chicago. I mean, I'm not talking about the Cubs fans, Cardinals fans. The Cardinals themselves thought. Or they said, yeah, we didn't like him. You know, we thought he was kind of crazy. But now that we have him, we like it. No, well, apparently not enough. You don't like it that much,
right?
Because you keep pulling him out of the starting job. I don't know. Am I missing something, Jim?
No, I'm there with you. I think this is the way I'm kind of feeling this thing out. I think they're still not, whatever they are thinking he should be doing, they're still not happy with him, and I think they're still they're not going to go out on the public and say with that again because they know how stupid it sounded and how all of baseball just ripped him for, well, he's not ready, he's not doing what we need him to do. I don't think they can afford to do that again. They're still not happy, but if Max Muncy, who knows the strike zone as good as any pitcher in baseball, sits there and goes, this guy was bullying umpires, getting the Cardinal strikes, I think he should catch. If Max Muncy says that and complains about it, then I think he should be catching. It doesn't make sense. And I'm sorry, I'm like you. Kisner, he's just not a good enough hitter to play him even twice a week in the lineup. He's just not good enough hitter for that.
And, so we look – I know. Listen, the offensive catcher is not nearly as bad as the last season and even 2021. So, okay, so I'm not going to, over-exaggerate or whatever. But so far, what the catchers have produced collectively, it's still like 6% below average. Well, that's what happens when you take the catcher that you signed for his offense – had the best OPS among Major League catchers from 2016 through 2022. That's why you signed him. But you keep displacing him. And so instead of having these really good stats, heavy stats at the catcher position, you're diluting them because you want to play Andrew Kisner there. And Contreras has terrible numbers as a DH. If anyone can actually solve this puzzle, I would appreciate it because it's incomprehensible.
I can't. I have no answers.
His catching has not been bad ever since they did what they did to him. What? Tell me where I mean, seriously, I can take you through it. I'm not today. Take you through it start by start. The pitchers, now that they realize they couldn't get away with blaming it on him, have actually, for the most part, improved, and they've improved with him behind the plate. So, I don't understand. So they're not. He's catching just fine. He never was catching terribly. This is all a bunch of crap. I don't know why Mozeliak and Marmol went with it. I mean, they were enabling pitchers who were weak-minded and unable to fend for themselves, and they were crying for their bottle, and they were crying for Yachty. Yeah, go ahead and enable that. Hey, that's good. Now, you put together a bad rotation, and now when they try to do something as outrageous as, in fact, like have a mutiny against Contreras, yeah, go ahead and enable them because they've earned it, right?
Ooh, frustrating.
I know. Hey, I want to tell you, as we move it along here, and we're not at the finish line, but we're talking about a bunch of different things, and I like that. A lot of things with Cardinals baseball. But before we return, I want to talk to you about a place you've heard me talk about, and they're new to our show, and I'm really, really thrilled, and I'm really feel honored to talk about it because it's a beautiful business. Of course, I'm talking about Pasiglia Landscape Nursery Garden Center. There's so much there. It's 10 acres. It's out there in Wildwood. It's easy to get to. Even if you live where I do in the city, there's not a big deal. It's a nice drive. It's fine. And if you go the right time, it's like rush hour in the morning or the afternoon. Sometimes, if you're going to go on the highway, it might be a little slower than you want, but it's really not that far away at all. And especially if you go on the weekends. But anything you want, again, 10 acres, all of it beautiful. Anything you want, like supplies, plants, even inspiration, you'll find it at Pasiglia Landscape Nursery Garden Center. Founded in 1950, this is a proud St. Louis family. They're very proud of the business. That they've owned it all that time. And then 30 years ago, they added something else, landscape design services. And if you want to see examples plural of their work at Pasiglia, what they can do in landscaping for you, there's plenty of samples available if you just go to pasiglia.com and look around. In fact, you go to pasiglia.com and look around, you can see how beautiful everything is, how wonderful everything looks. And I'm pretty sure it's going to fire you up to get on out there. And I just think that when you have one family overseeing this and striving to make it bigger and better than ever and just get better and better and better at what they do, you've just got a wonderful place if you are a gardener or you are interested in landscaping service because they've slowly transformed the nursery into a location for quality, beauty, excellent service. And if you go to their site, again, I really recommend you go there and take a look around at pasiglia.com. You'll see, incredible landscape projects, events, inventory, prices, bunch of garden tips. You can ask for advice. You can meet the experts and see the information on do-it-yourself gardens. And check out their podcast, To the Root with Pasiglia. And you'll hear a lot of garden tips and a lot of advice and really great stories of the garden center life. So here's what you do. You visit Pasiglia Landscape Nursery Garden Center for all your gardening needs today. And if you want to find out more, you'll find them at 1855 Highway 109 in Wildwood or online at pasiglia.com. Do we need to take another break?
We do not. We are clear for the rest of the show today.
So anyway, I got that Contreras thing out of the way. One of the things on my mind, is should the Cardinals trade Paul DeJong? Joe Sheehan raised the point. It's a legitimate thing if they plan to have Mason win as their shortstop next season. I assume they do, but maybe I shouldn't automatically assume that that's true. But what do you do if they're still trying to make up ground, and he is, if you go by the stats, he's one of their top 3 hitters, Paul DeJong. So if you trade him, and maybe you get something that'll help you, but with your outfield not providing the offense that it should, your infield's providing plenty of offense. and they're undermining the offense being provided by their catchers by using a guy who can't hit. So in that context, with the outfield offensively being so disappointing, and because the Cardinals have mishandled the catcher situation, Paul DeJong's offense, and I don't care about the crazy deniers, Paul DeJong's offense is more important now, way more important now than you would think. Because if they're going to have to put Edman in the outfield, Donovan in the outfield, because they're not getting enough production from the other guys who are still capable of playing, he's got to stay at shortstop, and no one should even complain for 1 second about that. He's arguably the best hitting shortstop in the majors right now, and yeah, that's based on facts. But his value is really, really high. So if you're looking towards the future, instead of putting all the premium, all the priority on this season, if you hold on to him, you don't trade him, and maybe he starts to go and decline a little later or a lot later in the season before the deadline, his trade value won't be the same. If you get to the market early and he's at his peak and you tantalize potential trade partners with that, who knows what you would get. But if he starts to decline or gets hurt, then the trade value will go down. It's an interesting question. It depends on what the Cardinals prioritize. That's what it comes down to. If he continues to hit like this, Jim, if they're willing to give him up, in other words, saying like, well, yeah, it's important that we win this year, but it's more important in the future, whatever. Well, then that tells us that they're really not committed to winning this year. Because how could you be if you're giving up one of your best pieces offensively? Unless it's someone truly worthy. You say, oh, you mean we could get that starting pitcher? And something that would entice you. Then again, they don't even have the brains to keep Matthew Liberatore in the rotation.
Yeah.
Young man, that'll teach you to come up here and throw 5 shutout innings and make the Brewers look like idiots and win that series for us. You got to go to the bullpen. We have better starters than you.
But we're going to need you in short relief because a couple of them can't get through 5.
Yeah, we want you to do a job you've never done before and change your routine and put you at risk for injury.
Oh, goodness.
That'll teach you to come up here and finally pay off for the Randy Arozarena trade a little bit. Now we'll break you. We'll do the wood chipper in honor of Mike Matheny. Put you down in the bullpen and good luck. Good luck with the future. Let us know how the TJ surgery goes. Now, I'm being an ass right now, but I just wanted to blow off some steam.
That's fine.
Because why are they messing with the kid?
I don't get this one either. By the way, Texter just sent something in regarding trade situation we were talking about. He says, I don't blame Mo for hesitation in the trade market. He's in a trade slump, and the upcoming trade opportunities for starting pitching is daunting. He says a huge pool of outfielders and infielders are iffy with offensive production, meaning O'Neill, Carlson, Burleson, Edman, Donovan. He's just going on. Yepes, DeJong. He goes, who do you decide to keep is a big question.
And that is a huge question. And as we sit here today, I'd very much doubt that they would keep DeJong because they have big plans for Mason Wynn. But you never know. And listen, as persistent as they've been about keeping DeJong, it's finally paying off. And I still hear the people still harping about that contract. This stuff is like one of those little containers where they have bubble gum, like in the little round shaped bubble gum.
Oh, yeah.
What they're paying him is bubble gum compared to what shortstops are going for. But you would think that Mozeliak back in the day gave Paul DeJong like $120 million or something. I'm really funny because last time I was looking at people on Twitter and they're just saying, "Yay, yo, do y'all realize that what they're paying him basically is very little?" Take a look around and see what shortstops are making. What are y'all squawking about? But it's true. So I don't know what their plans are. They don't have to make that decision now, but they might have to make the decision to an extent by envisioning their forward-thinking plans. And if they're like, nope, we got to go with Wynn, we're excited, we're going to plug him in, well then, no, you don't pick up his option for next season because it'd be $12.5 million. And while that does not freak me out, if you think a guy can still play for you and fill in and play shortstop, Wynn can play some second base. You could have some flexibility. And if he's still hitting, $12.5 million is chicken feed. It's just not that. Maybe it is for DeWitt because he's still going to keep the payroll down, so that's a factor too. Hey man, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of moving pieces in this, but it's a fascinating discussion, and I'm going to be really curious to see how it goes. And because of DeYoung and Gorman, Goldschmidt, Arenado, I did a search on this yesterday. I'll maybe repeat it tomorrow. The Cardinals have basically one of the top 3 infields in the majors in terms of offense. So there's always that aspect of like, well, why do you want to mess with that? Because your outfield ain't hitting, so you got all these guys doing great as infielders when they're up at, in terms of their offensive game. Yeah, you really want to weaken that? Mm. What? Because you have this like all galaxy outfield? You think? No, I don't think you do.
Haven't had one of those for quite some time.